Jamie Schmale is the Conservative Member of Parliament for Haliburton-Kawartha Lakes in Ontario. He's also the Vice Chair on the Standing Committee on Indigenous and Northern Affairs and the Conservative Shadow Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations. He joined us in studio earlier today. Jamie, thanks for taking some time for us here today. As mentioned in the intro, you're the Vice Chair on the Standing Committee on Indigenous and Northern Affairs, which always has big issues in front of it. One of those right now is Bill S2, which would end the second generation cutoff. Is this something that the Conservative Party supports?
You know, this bill, the amendments that were passed in the Senate are something that we've been looking into, and we are greatly anticipating that coming to committee. At the same time, we are supportive of these changes. We are very excited about the Senate's discussion that they had regarding the second generation cutoff change. As you know, there are two parts to Bill S2, the enfranchisement, which we supported in a previous parliament, and now the amendments brought forward through the Senate. At this point, it looks like the government has indicated that they want to slow walk this through. We, on the other side, think there's a different path, and I think if we work together with the Senate, I think there is a path forward to getting this finished.
Yeah. Another big matter that routinely comes before the Standing Committee is on Indigenous procurement. There were headlines recently about nearly $300 million in contracts going to companies that have since been removed from the Indigenous Business Directory. But when you look at the companies that were removed, only a few dozen of those were because they didn't meet the criteria. Do you think the number of fraudulent businesses is perhaps being over-exaggerated?
I think this is the thing we're trying to pressure the government on. Let's have a look at the program in its entirety. As we found out through a study in the previous parliament, there was fraud being taken place, in particular the Arrive Can or the Arrive Scam app that showed that there was massive fraud in that whole program, and the fact that there was very little, if any, Indigenous participation in that, and yet there were companies claiming Indigenous identity. And so we were forcing the government to take a look at this. But at the same time, there was also a recent article that showed the vast majority of these businesses that did get that funding that was secured for Indigenous companies were in the Ottawa area. There was very little penetration out to the real world, and that is something we had an issue with at all. So we would like to see more Indigenous participation in government contracts, but we also need a program that is going to actually reward those that are Indigenous, but also punish those that are faking their identity to get included and bypass a lot of the procurement policies.
Yeah, when looking for some of those fakes, I thought maybe the numbered companies would be easy targets, but even looking at some of those, they were just economic development firms for First Nations here in Manitoba. APTN, another company removed from the list there. How can the government ensure Indigenous businesses are the ones benefiting from the Indigenous procurement policy? There
are lots of Indigenous organizations already set up that have offered to help. They have come to us. They, I would assume, went to the government and had the same conversations, which has let us be involved. Indigenous identity is what we do. This is something that can be done with organizations already set up. We don't need a new bureaucracy. We can lean on Indigenous organizations themselves, entities that have proven track records. Let's use that knowledge, let's use that expertise and put it to work here.
You're here in Manitoba just after Louis Riel Day. One of the recent things to come forward in the House of Commons, of course, was the introduction of a self-government treaty with the Manitoba Métis Federation. Is this legislation that the Conservatives support?
We're working our way through the process. One of the reasons why I'm in Winnipeg today is to have those conversations with the Manitoba Métis Federation or the Red River Métis. We have some concerns about the treaty itself, some areas that potentially could encroach on other Métis nations itself, and there are some jurisdictional questions that need to be answered before we can take a full position on this. We want to respect the fact that they have reached the point where they're at treaty, but at the same time, we don't want to put other nations out, like the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, Alberta, etc., that have concerns regarding their jurisdiction being encroached upon.
Lengthy conversation we could have there. Jamie, we'll have to leave it there, though. Appreciate you taking some time for us.
Thanks for having me.